Okay, good evening. It is January 28th, 2025. This is a special meeting of the Conservation Commission / Inland Wetland Agency for Norwalk, Connecticut. Could I have a call to order, please? I'm sorry, that was a call to order. Roll call, please. I'm rusty after being a week off.
I know you've been gone for so long.
Yeah.
I'll start at the top with Commissioner Brown.
Here.
Commissioner Bennett.
Here.
Commissioner Kwaki.
Here.
And Commissioner Knight.
Here.
So you have 4, which is just the perfect amount for a quorum.
Perfect. Okay. Technically, next on the agenda is an opportunity for anyone from the public to comment, but I don't want anyone to get confused about the public hearings that we're here to take part in. So I don't know, Alexis, should we ask if someone
yeah, so the public comment on this part of the agenda is put there really as for the Conservation Commission, and it's a place for the public to provide any public comments regarding conservation issues as a whole, not any particular pending application. So tonight, the only items on the agenda are public hearings, and so for each of those items, there'll be a public hearing, and there'll be an opportunity for you to speak on any of those pending applications. But this is just general comments. And so if anyone does want to make a general comment, you can raise your hand. Otherwise, we'll move on to the public hearing. And I don't see anyone raising their hand, so I think you can.
Looks like everyone got the message. Fantastic. Okay, there are no receipt and discussion tonight, so we'll go straight to public hearings. The first one is S24-650 for 292 Willow Street. Take it away, Alexis.
And
actually, take it away, Amelia, perhaps.
Sounds good. Amelia can.
Sure. So we got the revised landscaping plan that was forwarded to you all, as well as a draft resolution pending. If there are any public comments or comments from commissioners for any changes. The only change really discussed at the last meeting was moving that planted buffer to the area of work where the wall was, which it was revised accordingly. So if anyone has any questions, or Jackie, if you have anything you'd like to add about the application.
And Jackie, you are still muted. And while you work on unmuting yourself, I will just note that for the public hearing, it was properly noticed twice in the Norwalk Hour on Thursday, the 16th and the 23rd of January. And additionally, the applicant sent a notice to all adjacent owners, property owners as well. So yeah, Jackie, so typically we see like a very brief presentation from the applicant, kind of just a recap of your revised plan. And then we'll let if there are any members of the public interested in your application, they can speak. You can have a chance for a rebuttal. And then the commission has the opportunity to either keep the public hearing open or to close it. We still can't hear you.
Try this. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Awesome. Great. Yes, for everyone who wasn't here last time, my name is Jackie Howard. I'm a landscape designer with Brooke Clark Landscape Architects. And I can actually share my screen if that works for everyone. Let's see here. Okay, now can everybody see the plan on my screen? Okay, perfect. So yes, per the board's comments, well, to backtrack, what we're here for is to rebuild this existing wall that had fallen down, and that's when the wetlands violation came into play. So we're rebuilding about 45 feet of wall, and then we're also proposing to have a sandbag dam during construction that will be removed once the wall has been rebuilt. This purple line is silt fencing to protect any further runoff from going into the pond. And again, per the board's comments, originally we had a plant bed along this wall, but we switched it to the other side, so this way it can catch any additional runoff from going into the pond. And that's about it from what changed from last time.
Okay, thank you. I think usually we let the public comment first and then usually give commissioners a chance, but if any commissioners have any questions they'd like to ask right now, go for it. It was pretty straightforward to me. Okay, great. And Alexis, is anyone online to comment from the public on this?
So, not that I know of. So if any of the meeting attendees, if you'd like to make any comments regarding this application for 292 Philo Street, just use the raise your hand feature on Zoom, or if you're calling in, you can do *9. I don't see any takers.
All right. And we do have a memorandum.
Right, so you would, it is a public hearing, so if the agency members, if you don't have any questions, further questions or concerns or comments that you'd like feedback from the applicant, now is the time to do so. And if you don't have any, then you would make a motion to close the public hearing for this item. On the agenda, you have the 4 public hearings kind of stacked, and then we'll go to discussion and decision after they're all done.
Right on. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Would one of the commissioners like to move to close the public hearing?
I can move to close the public hearing.
Okay, do you have a second?
I'll second it.
Thanks, Paul. Any discussion on that? All in favor? Oh, I'm
Aye.
abstaining from the vote, sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
looks to be unanimous.
Okay.
3 commissioners for, none against. Okay, so hang out, Jackie, and we'll come back to you at the discussion and decision portion of the meeting later.
Okay, great.
If
Thank
you
you.
want to.
Thank you. Okay, moving on then to S24-645, 36 Range Road.
Okay, so this is also a public hearing. It was properly noticed in the Hour newspaper, also on January 16th and 23rd. And additionally, we did receive proof of mailing by the applicant to all the adjacent property owners. So with that, again, public hearing. So typically we would have the applicant provide a brief presentation, give the agency members any updates to the proposal. Any members of the public would then be invited to speak. The applicant will have a chance for a final rebuttal if there is anything to rebut. And then the agency, you can determine whether you have sufficient information to render a decision either later tonight or at a meeting in the future, or if you don't, leave the public hearing open. So with that, it looks like the applicant's representative, Ms. Throckmorton, is here, and as is Mr. Anderson, the homeowner.
Yes, hi everybody. Good evening and hello. Kate Throckmorton for the record, a licensed landscape architect with Environmental Land Solutions of Norwalk. We have prepared the initial plan and some revisions. I know this is the first time that I have been in front of you. I know the owner, Mike Anderson, has been handling kind of the pre-meeting, pre-public hearing information. So I'm going to kind of take it from the top and run through my plans and the site. So this is the existing condition survey, just to get orientated. Range Road is on your left. Crooked Trail actually borders the site to the east. The house is in this vicinity. And there is a water course that runs to the east of the house, which is located here. It's an unnamed water course with an associated wetlands. As the property is roughly 0.6 acres, and this back area forms kind of a valley with this brook at the center of the valley. And then the topography comes back up to Crooked Lane. So the vegetation in the back of the house, as I understand it, has been historically maintained as a garden and managed as a garden. To the east of the brook remains a somewhat naturalized wooded area with an understory of ornamentals and primarily euonymus shrubs. I recognize that this property received a cease and correct order sometime in August. And later that fall, I was retained to help Mr. Anderson prepare a plan to address those issues and restore the areas that were impacted. I'm going to go to my plan now. This is my site plan, which goes over what's proposed. As we all know, this area that is within the wetlands and immediately west of the brook was intensively landscaped. There were some walls that were constructed, series of walls, tiered walls, and this area was finished with turf and leveled out. So we propose that all of the impacted wetlands, which are roughly 1,100 square feet, all this material be taken out. We understand that we observed that there's roughly anywhere between 6 and 12 inches of fill that was used to level out this area. So that will be completely removed. We will have the surface decompacted. As Alexis provided me with some aerials, I can see that the work area was fairly extensive and it will clearly need some decompaction to loosen up the soil and allow the plant roots to get reestablished and provide the functions back into this area. We are also suggesting that some of the improvements stay. There is roughly a 10-foot drop from immediately behind the house down to the brook over this area right here. The existing contours, which are very close to one another, the existing contours from which is included from the city aerials are included here. And there was always a small recreation area at the back of this house. And then previously it sloped down fairly steeply, and the area where the wetland is immediately leveled back out into a more gentle sloping area. So the point is to take out all the improvements and all of the impacts of this wetland and get that completely restored. Once that's accomplished, we will move on to replanting and restoring the vegetation to this area so that the wetland function itself can be restored. That's going to include reseeding the area with a meadow mix to begin with, but then also to plant in 26 native shrubs, and we're including an understory tree in the area. What we have specifically asked to remain is the gravel slope walk that comes out behind the house. We've added a metal edge to make sure that none of that gravel can migrate into the wetlands. We believe that that is a good solution because it allows the water to seep back into the ground, but allows an access on that side of the house. The owner does have a couple of young kids who use this area often, and we thought that that would be a good way to stabilize that. We're also asking that the stone walls remain. They are outside of the wetland. The middle tier area is now vegetated with ornamental shrubs, but none of them are invasive or troublesome or concern. But but that area is now vegetated. The upper area is going to be changed in that the existing turf that's there is going to be reduced. Mr. Anderson is asked to install a chimney and a stone surround to that area, so that will reduce some of that turf area. Some of the additions that I've made and some of the revisions and have included in this plan through the comments that I've gotten back from Mr. Anderson. I'm going to go through some of those just to highlight. There are some detailed erosion control notes and construction sequence that were added to the plan to help the person who is going to be doing this work to provide them with succinct guidelines on how that gets done, that the area will be decompressed, that it will be left in an undulating state and allowed to naturalize. Again, a construction sequence detailing how the material is going to get in there. The only way to get back to that area of the house is this southern portion access. I think a combination of a small skid steer and handwork starting at the north end and moving back this way to make sure that they are not reworking areas that have been restored. Again, we've expanded the native plantings. We believe that this native plantings will actually, in the long run, probably be better than what was there prior. I did see several photographs and also in the aerials. This area was maintained as a garden. The area continues to have bamboo. It had an extensive bamboo area prior to this work, and I know the owner's good intent was actually in part to get rid of the bamboo. I think he just was a little unknowingly impacting the wetlands while he was doing it, but he has actually succeeded in doing that. So in some regards, despite some of the impacts that have been had, I think we can end up with a functioning back wetland. And actually with a significant reduction in the invasives that were there several years ago. Again, we added a specific edge to the gravel to make sure that that will not migrate down. And I note that the herbaceous garden, again, I listed the plants that were there, which include catmint, hydrangea, and yucca. And again, these are ornamentals. But they are known to support pollinators and they're non-invasive plants. So overall, I think if this plan is implemented with the details and outlines that have been added to the plan and removing of all the imported material, the decompaction of the soil, getting the life and animals back into the back will go a long way for this to become naturalized and restore the functions and provide the functions to be restored over time. That will take a little bit of time, but I think once the plants become established and the roots get back into the ground and have those functions restored, I think the area in the long run will be much better off. And I'm here to answer any questions, clarify any additional items that I may have missed or that have come up.
Thanks, Kate. Commissioners, any questions? Catherine.
Yeah, I have a question just to understand. There's a lot of activity in the upland area, and we know that having a bit of a vegetated buffer helps with filtration, the bionutrients. There's a lot of things that were listed as impacting the wetland. I see that there's been attention made toward remediating the wetland, but there's a lot of collective activity which has an impact in the upland review area. There's a lot of runoff from the turf area, from the house, from the patio, from the gravel, and just trying to understand where's the filtration before it hits the wetland.
Sure. Well, I think there's two parts to that. One, this area has been historically maintained as a garden with ornamental plantings, number one. Number two, the new reworking of this area has created level areas that, in fact, although are a bit of a challenge, it was extensive work. I think the final outcome is actually now you have two level areas that are all pervious. They're all absorbing the rainwater. They're all infiltrating. And outside of the sitting areas and paved areas, they are planted. This area is planted. This has historically been planted, I believe, with azaleas, and now it's planted with a mix of other ornamentals, but it's actually level and mulched and stabilized so that will actually provide that function. The area behind here, which has been gravel, this is all going to be restored. This area in the buffer. This area around immediately behind the house remains all pervious. And none of this can actually necessarily run off. It's fairly flat. There's an existing wall that comes up in a parapet fashion that actually mandates that the water that's up there essentially stays on that flat level surface and infiltrates back into the ground. So I think these are outdoor recreation areas that have historically been there, and they've been reworked. I will agree to that, but I don't think that the reconfiguration of the recreation space has impacted the wetlands. It hasn't increased impervious coverage, and it hasn't necessarily decreased in any great way the vegetation, because that was always an outdoor recreation sitting area. As far as the house goes, the house hasn't been changed to the best of my knowledge, nor has the roof drains. So I don't know that there is any runoff change to that whole area. And in the end, frankly, there's more level space for the water to infiltrate it at this final outcome.
Kate, do you have any thoughts on little plastic chunks from that turf area getting tracked down to the wetland on a regular basis, just by foot traffic?
Well, I would say I'm sure everybody has a strong feeling one way or another about plastics in our environment, and the public awareness has been very heightened of it. I would say that this specific turf area doesn't really, I don't see that it's going to be directly impacting the wetlands. It remains pervious. I don't think it's any more impactful than really an outdoor plastic carpet. And that's literally what it is. It's no different from tarp or anything else. I mean, and it's not going to fall apart. There's no infill in it. It's just a basic rollout, rubber. Really, it's a carpet. if I'm calling it turf, it looks like grass, but it's really like an outdoor carpet. So you have to, it's flat. There's a wall there. I don't see that it has the ability to actually shed water directly down the hill. You have to actually go down the stairs to leave that area. So I don't really see that would be a significant source of pollutant.
Okay, thanks. Catherine?
Yeah, I think, the lifespan of these typically is like 8 to 10 years or so before they need to be replaced and maintained because they break down over time. And so just in terms of like more and more research coming out with the leaching and forever chemicals and microplastics coming down from it. Also, I'm concerned about you just don't have accumulation of the nutrient cycle because you don't have the organic material breaking down and decomposing on that space. So you've basically, in terms of like what you hope for in an upland area is not necessarily a plastic carpet, which basically impacts all of the micronutrients underneath in the organic material. you know, it's not just about having a pervious surface, but, you know, I just don't, I feel very uncomfortable with that being there. And the gravel going directly up to the wetland border, it would be more beneficial to see a buffer than a metal, given the steep grade there. And, you know, you've put in 2 retaining walls, which has changed a lot of the way that the water moves on the property. So it looks from the pictures that we saw of the before versus the after. I don't know if you've seen those. It's very different.
Yeah, I've seen it. I've been there several times. So I am aware of it. You know, I think it's changed. It's a very small site and the house is very close to the wetlands. So there, and it's not a 2-acre site with ample room to recreate or anything else. These are very small lots. They were developed a long time ago. All of these areas were maintained and worked and gardened and used for years and years and years. And you know, if anything, the terracing of the topography is going to prevent actually runoff going directly to the wetlands and allow greater absorption of the water into the ground. And that is how you get water better infiltrating. That is how you feed the plants and feed the biota that's in the soil. You know, I appreciate your concern about the plastics. I really don't think that this small area is going to have a significant impact to the wetlands. I would say that it's an outdoor recreation area, and you know, we could maybe reduce some of it and plant some perennials, but I think that it's historically been a recreation area, and whether or not it's turf or grass or patio, I don't think any of that has a significant impact to the wetlands when it's up there and it's completely level and it is confined in actually a wall.
Thanks, Kate. Catherine?
Yeah, can you just maybe elaborate a little bit more onto what sources or what you're you know, what's the evidence that you're basing that on? That would be really helpful to know.
Well, I'm just, you know, I think we could debate a long time about whether or not it's plastics. I mean, whether, you know, you could have toy plastics. I mean, there's a lot of different sources of plastic all throughout the environment now. And I would just say that I do not think that, you know, when this gets taken up and replaced with something else, I really don't think that there's going to be a significant problem.
Okay. Catherine, is your hand still up? Would you like to make another comment or okay? Just out of curiosity, what's going on with the front yard?
As I do not have anything on my plan that is proposed for work in that front yard. There's
It's just like a level lawn though, isn't it?
it's lawn, there's trees along the street front and landscaping along the front yard. I didn't actually detail that area because I understand it is in the upland review area, but I didn't understand that that was the focus of our discussion.
No, that's not the focus. It's just you know, if one's concerned about having space to throw a football, for example, it seems like a good spot. But that's neither here nor there. Any other commissioner questions, or should we open up to the public? Okay. Alexis. Oh, no, my mouse doesn't work for some reason. You still there? There you are.
If any members of the public wish to speak on this application, again, this is for the application on Range Road. Please use the raise your hand feature on Zoom or dial *9 if you're calling in. I don't think anyone is taking you up on the offer to provide public comment. Can I just ask one quick question regarding for the excavation within the wetland area, I wanted to confirm that the skid steer that you had mentioned, that would be making its way down the southern side property yard, kind of between the house and the shed, to get down to the bottom of the slope.
That is correct. That's the only way that any machine can get the access to this area currently. And I think in my construction outline, I've specifically called out and clarified that when they do start removing and restoring the soil areas, that they need to start from the north and move their way back out,
Okay.
so that the skid steer does not retrack over any area that have been decompacted and cleaned up.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Kate. Catherine, did you have something?
Yeah, just one last question, just on the choice of deciding to make it a meadow wetland rather than a canopied wetland, which seems to be the environment up and down the brook. And just from what I understand how Alexis had presented it originally, that it was a canopied wetland. So I just wanted to understand that.
I think that I think we're just trying to make a reasonable restoration within the means of the owner, and provide some long-term access and viewing of the area. I think if we could, I could discuss with the owner whether or not we take out some of the shrubs and swap them out for trees, if that's what you're suggesting.
Oh, wouldn't the meadow mix be worse than if you had more trees?
Well, worse in what way?
Well, and I guess it implies, Catherine, you can speak for me if you want, but the meadow mix implies wide open space, and something that fits better underneath trees would be better if we were going to plant more trees.
Well, I would say that in any situation, I would strongly suggest that the whole area be seeded with the meadow mix. The immediate condition is open, and it will allow the seed and roots to begin to establish and stabilize that area. Once any of the shrubs that we put in grow and to their full size, the leaf litter will increase and the grasses will diminish, but that's going to take some time. So I think what's imperative is that we get a vegetative cover over the whole area to stabilize it immediately, and it would be continuously covered with vegetation, and not really kind of a spotty situation. So that is kind of an evolution that's got to happen. We don't have the ability to put in full-grown trees, and nor do I support that. So I would say either way, if we swapped out some of the shrubs for trees, I still would suggest the same stabilization to begin with seeding. And then over time, that lower level will become more leaf litter and a mix of material as that naturalizes, and it will eventually return to the way it was. That is, as long as the homeowner continues to manage and remove the bamboo. Otherwise, it will revert back to a bamboo forest, which was appeared to be what it was 5 or so years ago.
Thanks. Catherine?
Yeah, sorry, just one last question, just because there's the tree house in there and there's language with the meadow path and access and recreating. You know, if you put in a meadow here, given like the situation that we have with Lyme disease and other tick-borne diseases, I just want to understand kind of the aspirations and whether this means that what's the likelihood of then tick applications or pesticides being sprayed directly into the wetlands for that kind of control, if you've got kids playing in there and doing things. So I just wanted to flag and understand that.
Sure. Well, I certainly haven't. If you read through my notes, I've specifically said that that any applications of herbicides got to be done spot treatment by a licensed applicator. And I would say that, you know, you could say that about anything. You could get ticks in your lawn, and it doesn't matter. I would say that I would strongly suggest that we put in meadow. I think that, you know, what's the alternative to, you know, plant a handful of trees? It's still going to be the same concern, you could say. And the alternative to meadow or any kind of seed is going to be mulch. So I think that that is a bit counterproductive, because what we want this area to be vegetated. And the way it needs to be vegetated is to start with seed and woody material.
Is there, so I'm just looking online, so there's like a New England wet mix. Doesn't have any ryegrass as far as I can tell. Is anybody else familiar with something
So
like that? New England wetland plants.
so this the seed that I've actually suggested is perennial food and cover and wetland mix. It's primarily sedges. The rye that's in there is the native rye. And there is some other perennials and woolgrass, but it's primarily sedges, native sedges.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, so commissioners, this is it. If we close the public hearing, then we don't get to take in any more information from the applicant. So, well, I guess I just want to throw that out there before someone makes a motion to close the public hearing.
Well, before you close it, I'll just say that if there was a discussion about whether or not you wanted more canopy in lieu of some of the shrubs, I would like to understand that, and so that we have an application that we can be successful with and that the commission can support. So if
Yeah.
anybody else feels that way, I think I'd appreciate that discussion before you close the hearing.
I think the sticking points are the turf in the upland review area, the synthetic turf, and the gravel path not having a more robust, you know, buffer to the wetland. And then, you know, I guess a minor issue would be what the area is seeded with. And, you know, reading between the lines, we don't want to promote that this space be used as anything but a wetland, right? So anyway, yeah, I mean, other commissioners, go ahead and chime in, and Catherine and I have been talking a lot. If this is in a form that would allow you to vote confidently either for or against a resolution, which I don't think we have one for tonight, so it'd have to be our next meeting. Is that right, Alexis?
Sorry, what were you saying?
Do we have when we get to the discussion and or decision
Mhm.
part of the meeting tonight, do we have something to review for this property?
No. Oh,
No, we don't.
that's fine.
Okay.
No
right.
idea what you would.
Yeah, so there's
Right.
nothing to approve tonight anyway, so we can just
Right.
continue to talk about it, I guess.
Right, so if you close the public hearing, that concludes the record, and the record is what you need to base your decision on. And then you can continue to discuss what you have already obtained through the application packet and tonight's testimony.
Okay, well, Catherine, thanks, Alexis.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the point is that, you know, just distinct difference for me in terms of turf or paving or grass or things like that. is that one, the turf needs to be replaced over a certain period of time because it degrades. That's not necessarily the case of stone patio or things like that. So that's something that needs to be looked after because it can become problematic. It's also, there's just not a lot of opportunity for bionutrients and nutrient cycling and energy transference that happens between the wetlands and the upland area when you have a sheet of plastic over dirt. It just doesn't promote this type of macro breaking down of organic material that can happen and is important to the health and benefit of a wetland area. So, I mean, that's, I've tried to emphasize that what would be helpful because of the amount of activity and disturbance in the upland area up to the literally like abutting the wetland is the retaining wall, gravel, turf, a house, all these things are pre-existing, but then, I've been trying to emphasize that in terms of the standard of what we've looked at in applications is that we've really looked for that good vegetated buffer that we know is going to help mitigate the impact of necessary activities that are happening in the upland area. So that's just what I wanted to just put clear out there for the record.
Well, and you could say that, if the synthetic turf was replaced by, permeable pavers, there's not a lot of biology happening there either. So it's sort of like there's varying degrees, right? And, I'm just trying to shine light on both sides of things where, on one hand, you've got what we would want naturally, which is nothing, and then, or, just wetland plants and soil and whatnot. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, we've got a plastic rug. Does something in the middle like a patio, is it a decent compromise? With natural materials? Is it something we can expect given the input that we've gotten from the professional that's been engaged by the owner? We don't have an alternate professional opinion on this. So, as we've discussed, we don't have a lot of ground to stand on. And I assume, Alexis, it's too late for us to ask to have a second opinion.
It would be a little tight to get a third party opinion. And I guess I would just say that when you're looking at any application, but in particular a corrective action application, obviously you're regulating the activities that are likely to have an impact to a wetland or watercourse. And this applicant received a notice of violation and an order for a series of activities that happened directly within the wetland itself, which is the most impactful activity, and some ancillary activities adjacent to the wetlands and watercourses. And there are, and so that was kind of a whole package. Let's see how to say this. If in a hypothetical, if the wetland itself wasn't, if all the grading and reconfiguring of the backyard hadn't happened, and the patio, the flat area to the immediate rear of the house had remained as a kind of a lawn and patio. And if someone hadn't done all that other work, but just put down a plastic carpet, I don't know if enforcement action would have happened. So I just want you to keep the scale of activities in mind, and kind of think of each activity as, I mean, you have to assess all the activities that's packaged, but you also kind of have to parcel them out and kind of prioritize them. That was a long answer to your question regarding a third party, which is that is
Probably
possible,
overkill at this point.
but yeah.
Okay, understood. No, it was a good answer, and I understand where you're at. So I'll go ahead and move to close the public hearing on S24-645.
I'll second your motion.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Cheryl, that was a yay from you or a nay? Yay?
Yes, yay.
Very good. Okay, thank you, Kate, for joining us. And you're welcome to hang around for the discussion and or decision, or not, whatever you choose.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Good night. All right, moving on to S24-648, and I assume we can do S16-499B at the same time?
I do them separately, please.
Separately. Okay, so just S24-648, which is the corrective action related to filling in and adjacent to wetlands and a water course at 284 New Canaan Avenue.
So good evening, Brian Carey with Land Tech, Director of Environmental Services. I'm a professional wetland scientist. Also with me tonight is Rick Constantini from FLB Law, who's here. I'm going to do the heavy lifting though. We're here on behalf of AJ Penna Associates at for the property at 283 New Canaan Avenue. As you said, there are 2 pending applications. Just to, I know there's a lot of public interest involved with both of these. We are going to ask for a extension just to on the other, as we're still pending receipt of comments from the town engineer. That being said, I'll go forward if I could share my screen. Since the last meeting on January 14th, we have submitted updated planting plans in response to, again, staff comments, but also comments that we did hear from the commission. Right now on your screen, are you seeing a memo from me to the staff?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so prior to the last meeting, we did receive a memo dated January 9th from staff asking us to basically add additional plantings in one area that was adjacent to actually within the wetland boundary. We did discuss this prior to the opening of this public hearing, and we did receive feedback from staff. So we did update the planting plan. This is just the general layout plan. But this is the plan that we have submitted to address the cease and correct order for the trees that were cut down, somewhat in the wetland, but mostly outside of the upland review area. We did provide the additional 570 square feet of planting as requested by the staff that you should have in the memo that we submitted. Overall, we have approximately 60 native trees being replanted. There'll be about 4 to 6 feet tall. And then there'll also be 240 native shrubs planted under the canopy for the under the canopy, proposed tree canopy. So there will be a shrub layer, and then there will also be, as part of that, will be seeding with a native ground seed mix. That's a wetland restoration seed mix that you can see. That is a New England erosion control seed mix that I do like this. This does very well in these disturbed areas because it has different level seeds that are able to stabilize the area quickly, as some of the other plants, native plants, such as big blue stem and New England aster and Joe Pyeweed, some of the more showy wildflowers can grow in once the area is stabilized. One of the other things that was requested as part of our application, I'll go back to this in a minute, was a wetland restoration monitoring plan. We have submitted this in a draft format. The reason it's in draft is just so that staff can review it. We generally, after the close of the hearing and prior to issuance of the permit, there may be some minor tweaks that we generally work with staff to just hammer out. And then we would submit this along with as part of the planting bond process. That being said, prior to the hearing today, we did receive a bunch of comments from the neighbors that we're still trying to go through. But as they relate specifically to this plan, one of the comments that we did receive, and we are in agreement with was that they wanted more of a evergreen screening. The reason why we hadn't provided that before is just the limited amount of plants that do well in a wetland area that are evergreen. Really in Connecticut, there are two that we can, basically swap out and try to create more of a wetland screening border, green border, so that this area will be provide more screening from the neighboring properties. Again, this application is just for the restoration plan. It doesn't include anything that's part of the other application, which is for the stormwater and expansion of the parking or of the site and the operations on the site. So we can swap out plants to either include the northern white cedar, which I've had some luck with, or the Atlantic white cedar, which again is really truly a wetland plant, and some of the areas that are where the planting is going in is upland review area. That being said, I don't generally plant a lot of northern white cedar, as it is arborvitae, and generally the wetland, we use it we generally use it in more of a manicured landscape than we do in a native restoration type of plan. But that being said, if it appeases the neighbors and it appeases the commission, I have no problem, or we have no problem, basically swapping out some of these plants that are, again, native hardwood trees to include evergreen. I don't think it would diminish the restoration plan as from an ecological perspective whatsoever. Again, the idea is to really once this is planted, to prevent any future encroachment into this area, and it will act as a not only as a riparian barrier to the adjacent wetlands, but also as a forested barrier between the site and the adjacent neighbors. So that being said, we feel like this plan really addresses all of the points within the cease and restore order. The 5-year monitoring plan will be put in place with the planting bond after the plants are installed. We've guaranteed 85% vegetation survival rate. So if things do die, they will be replaced, as long as over that 5-year period. And that's all specifically laid out in the monitoring plan. That being said, I can take any questions. I do think that this is pretty, it's pretty straightforward. The density is a lot, because we do understand we want to maintain the buffer between the wetlands and the neighbors. And we will, again, as part of the planting, remove, the stumps will stay in place that from the trees that were previously removed to prevent further erosion. But we will do all the plantings in a way that is protective of the wetlands. But I can answer any questions if you have them regarding the plan.
I'm going to give commissioners a chance to ask questions first. So it looks to be a pretty robust planting plan. Does Alexis, do you have feedback for us on this? You're still muted.
Thank you. No, it's the density of plants and the variety of plants, both in their species type and the difference of shade tree, shrub, and ground cover is appropriate for the area and for the area that was cleared. I appreciate that the plants would go around the existing stumps that were left when the area was cleared. I do think it's important that no further ground disturbance occur, and that I'd certainly recommend limiting the amount of machinery within the area when the plants are being installed, if you choose to approve it. And yeah,
Okay.
I think the monitoring plan as drafted is adequate in its frequency and the kind of the metrics for success.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, well, if no commissioners have any questions or comments, we'll open it up to public comment, but I'll reiterate that we need to keep the comments focused on the function of the wetland, the functions of the wetland, which
Right.
do not include privacy. They do not include a variety of things that, as I was looking through the comments that were shared with us before the meeting from the public, maybe Alexis, you can, since you do it so much more eloquently than I could, reiterate what the priorities are of the statute that we're here to uphold.
Sure. So I was going to just go through procedurally. If you want to speak, you can raise your hand and we'll go through in order of the first to raise their hand. For the public hearing, the intent of the public hearing is to allow the agency in making their decision, allowing them to gather some additional outside information. Typically, when they are reviewing applications, they're looking at the written application from the applicant and verbal testimony from the applicant and staff reports. When they have a public hearing, they're allowing the public to provide any additional information. It is a kind of a one and done, although you have 2 public hearings on this property. This current application that is being discussed is only the replanting and restoration of the disturbed wetland and adjacent upland review areas, as indicated on the screen currently. And as Commissioner Clocky mentioned, this is the Inland Wetland Agency, so their jurisdiction is a little bit myopic. They are looking at impacts to wetlands and watercourses, and particularly any activities that cause impacts, whether good or bad. And though they are all Norwalk residents who are compassionate individuals and certainly understand a lot of concerns, both concerns of the applicant and neighbors, they, at the end of the day, have to render their decision based on wetland impacts only. I will note that at some point, the property owner will need to make applications to the Planning and Zoning Commission. A special permit is required for this clearing, and a modification of the 2016 special permit for operation of the yard is warranted as well. And those will also have public hearings that will look at issues beyond inland wetland impacts. So with that, the agency would love to hear any additional testimony regarding the activity that previously occurred in this, the northern part of this property, and any comments regarding the proposal that you just heard summarized by Mr. Carey. So if you'd like to make a comment, use the raise your hand feature on Zoom, or if you're calling in, you can dial *9.
Thanks, Alexis.
You bet. And then I'll just also add that any written correspondence that I received via email from any of you, those letters, since it's they do kind of talk about elements in both this current application and the application that's next on the agenda. Those letters are incorporated into both files. So commissioners, you should also note that. I don't know if that was clear when I emailed it to you.
Implied, or at least I implied and assumed.
All right. So with that, for public comment, first is Miss Megan Miles. Oh. You should be allowed to speak now, Megan.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Hi. Okay. For the record, my name is Megan Miles. I am a land use attorney at Carmody, Torrance, Sandak, and Hennessy. My address is 195 Church Street in New Haven. And my firm represents Karen and Peter Wilson, who own a budding property at 178 Poconock Trail. I did submit correspondence into the record. I hope the commission saw it. I appreciate that it was added into the record for both applications. Candidly, I had prepared my comments as if I was addressing both applications. So I am going to briefly tease out comments as they solely relate to this restoration application. First, I want to stress that my clients and my understanding is that a number of people in the neighborhood are just concerned about the impacts of both the existing violations and the expansion to be addressed later on both the wetlands, which they share in the area, and their quality of life. And they are concerned that whether these impacts are being adequately mitigated in the proposed materials. So
Actually, Ms. Miles, can I pause you for 1 second? Mr.
course.
Carey, I believe you're still sharing your screen.
Oh, it's my letter.
Brian. There you go.
Okay.
For
What's
two
my letter?
reasons, slightly distracting, and also I don't think he was
Okay.
watching what was happening on his screen. Sorry to interrupt you. Keep going.
No, it's fine. So first, related to the restoration area specifically, I want to address straight away how we appreciate that the applicant has already read our correspondence and is working to incorporate evergreen trees into the wetland area and the upland review area. I want to stress, though, that this commission has said, listen, we understand that there's issues with the site that are unrelated to the wetlands. We want to try to keep our jurisdiction tonight to the issues that are actually within our jurisdiction, which is impacts to the wetlands and water courses. I want to stress that a few of the solutions to address neighborhood concerns likely do involve some work within either the wetlands or the upland review area. So for example, screening and noise mitigation is a big issue for the neighborhood. And my clients feel that evergreen trees would be very helpful so that they have year-round screening, visibility from the site, and noise mitigation. They're going to have to go in this restoration area. So we feel it's important that it's addressed adequately to the commission standards within this application. And if they are incorporated, which I sincerely hope, that the monitoring plans and everything are crafted to ensure that they thrive, that they grow and they thrive over the next few years, to ensure that an adequate screening buffer is built within this area. I believe the last comment I had related to restoration specifically was just a concern by my clients that the actual impacts from clearing were not completely addressed in the applicant's materials, either because there was no analysis of impacts to the wetlands prepared, such as no biological evaluation prepared. So rather the application is presented as, okay, we cleared the area, we're going to replant it. I think it's just a concern that my clients want to make sure that, okay, they cleared it. What were the impacts to these sensitive resources, and are they adequately being mitigated through these plantings? So those, I believe, are my two overarching points related to restoration.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Alexis, you're muted.
Any other further comment? So then next is Mr. Peter Wilson.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great, thanks for letting me in. This is a process question really, when it pertains to the other items that were wetlands related, where there were violations, where they were supposed to put in the storm drainage systems and other things to protect the upland area and protect the wetlands. Are those being addressed in a separate discussion?
Yes, so that's on the second item. So there are two applications.
I was
Real
just thinking the
quickly.
other one was expansion
And
related,
so the,
not remediation.
right, so this first one is just the corrective action clearing that happened on the northern part of the property, and then application, the permit modification number S16499B will deal with all other expansion activities in the yard that happened previously without a permit, and any additional proposed modifications to the yard.
Gotcha. So it will look back on the items that were not addressed in the first 7 years on the site, as well as deal with anything going forward?
Yeah, it's looking at, it's going, right.
Okay,
That,
great.
that will be the next.
Thank you. And the only other thing I think I might add is that I'm not sure if Brian's actually been out to walk the site, but I believe those stumps were all removed.
Oh, okay.
That's all I had. Thank you.
I will go out again, but the last time I was there, they were still in place,
And when was that, Brian?
about 3 weeks ago.
Okay, thanks.
Any other, Mr. Wilson, was that the extent of your comment?
Yes, I don't know if I'm still on or not. Yes, that's all I had. Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna take care. Any other public comment on just this current application? Okay. Chairman Clocky, I think that is the end of public comment on this particular application.
Great.
Um,
Oh, go ahead.
So I was just going to say, so again, for any public hearing, once you close the public hearing, your decision needs to be based on all the information that you received in advance of the close of that public hearing. So if you
Can I just
Why-
have the last word real
oh
quick?
yeah, absolutely. Sorry.
No problem. I just want to say, if I really appreciate all the commission's help and staff's help on getting this hopefully resolved. Again, if you do want to change some of those plantings to evergreen, obviously we will work to staff to make sure that there's a adequate one-to-one adjustment in the planting plan to benefit the neighbors, because we do understand their concerns and we are more than willing to help them try to be good neighbors. I also wanted to confirm too, I did just speak to my client who is ultimately the applicant, and they have not done any work in that area or have removed any stumps since I was on site 3 weeks ago. So I appreciate it, and I thank you if you're going to close the hearing. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioners have any questions or comments or any motions?
Yes, I have a question. I'm thinking, should we be keeping this open until Alexis can go check the site to make sure those stumps have not been removed? We have one person saying they were. We have a verbal from the owner saying that they were not, but yeah.
I would say at this point, if they're gone, they're gone, and there's nothing we can really do about it, honestly. But it's a good point. But also on that point about leaving it open, so this is not the application where the DPW still needs to comment, correct? That's the other one.
Correct. So this is
Okay.
just the replanting of the cleared area on the northwestern side of the yard.
Okay. Cool. So and Paul, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to like dismiss the comment.
No,
right?
it's fine,
That's, yeah.
and I
mean,
understand,
others
I
wanna leave it
understand if they're
open.
gone, I understand if they're gone, they're gone, but if there's, to me, it would just be, I mean, if they did that, they weren't supposed to do that either. It would be
Right.
another violation in my mind.
Exactly. Yeah, it would be good to know. That's a
Yeah.
good point. Okay. Other commissioners, any thoughts?
So Alexis, are we leaving it open or what do you?
It's up to us.
I think that's being ironed out.
Cheryl?
I just, I think adding the evergreens would be quite helpful, obviously, to the neighbors. And, also to the structure of the wetlands, if they're wetland appropriate species.
Okay. Thanks.
So it's sounding like you may want to have the public hearing open so that staff can do a final site inspection. And I can take photographs and upload them so that you can see them. If any of you are interested, as a commission, we don't do site meetings, but individually, you're always encouraged to go out and have a look. This is your last chance to do that. And then I'd say it gives the applicant a opportunity to maybe do a more robust looking at the just kind of articulating the biological impacts to the wetland and hopefully confirming the adequacy of mitigation activities to rectify those impacts.
I was going to comment on that too. Usually Brian's very good about providing that stuff, and I guess we just never pushed it or asked for it with this application. So that was I thought was a very justifiable comment.
Just the reason I didn't provide that was because, I mean, the answer, I mean, there's impacts, we're mitigating them. Normally I'll do an impact analysis prior to the potential impacts and then show how we're mitigating them. I mean, I'm gonna tell you right now, I mean, when you cut down, an area of almost 21,000 square feet, there's going to be impacts to the adjacent wetlands. That's why the cease and correct order was issued, which is why we came up with a plan that, meets the Army Corps standards for stem count and appropriateness with the monitoring plan. So, while I don't mind doing that, it's kind of the cart before the horse at this point. I'm not standing here telling you that there hasn't been impacts to that area. We're mitigating those impacts at the best we can.
No, I'm sorry. It wasn't meant to be an.
No, I know. I was responding also to the previous comment.
Okay. Well, yeah, so let's leave it open and we don't need a motion for that, right? We only need a motion to close it. Is that true, Alexis?
Correct, but it might be nice to have a motion to continue the public hearing to your next meeting, which is February 11th. February 11th already. So it would be continued to your February 11th meeting, which is a regular meeting, and the continuation of the hearing would begin also at 7 p.m.
So moved. Can I have a second for that?
I'll second.
Sorry.
You get a second and a third, I guess.
All right, we'll give it to Paul for this one. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, unanimous. Great. Okay. All right, so then let's keep moving on to S16-499B, same property. This is a corrective action permit modification to expand the extent of previously approved contractor's yard.
Right, and so this is an application that should cover any expansion of the yard from that 2016 approval. And again, I'll give the floor to the applicant. They can make their presentation. The commission will then open it up to public comment, and then we'll return to the applicant for rebuttal, and likewise the agency will make the determination whether a continuance would be in the best interest of all.
So again, thank you, Brian Carey, with Land Tech, Director of Environmental Services, professional wetland scientist with offices in Westport. Rick Constantini, who is the attorney for the project, is also here on behalf of the applicant, who's AJ Penn Associates, who's occupied the site since 2016. So I am going to go through this just overview real quick, because I will ask for, I'm going to ask the commission for a continuance, because we did get information from the neighbors into the record today that we would like to review. Not to be combative, but we want to see how we can address their concerns. And that being said, we also have, we're waiting for engineering comments from the town engineer, city engineer, based on our drainage plan. So we do know that there will be some minor modifications, hopefully minor modifications, to the plans that were submitted on January 23rd. I do want to make note, though, after the last commission meeting, I believe on January 14th, we did address a lot of the concerns of the commission by actually reducing the area of the yard expansion, so that now we're looking at average wetland buffers between 80 and 30 feet, where previously it was at, we had some as close as 5 feet in the lower area of the property. That information has been submitted into the record. The updated plans will only really address the stormwater comments from the engineers, and we're going to see how we can address comments we receive from the neighbors, and hopefully get their buy-in on the plans that have been submitted for the yard expansion. We did review the comments from the neighbors very quickly this afternoon. We do feel that we will be able to address most of those comments from a wetland perspective. It does seem as though most of the comments that were submitted are comments that are really more geared to the planning and zoning special permit, which we also have to amend as part of this process. So that being said, I can answer any questions, but I will be submitting updated plans as soon as I get comments from the town engineer. Alexis, I'm sorry.
You did again. Sorry, I did have a quick question, but I'll let Commissioner Knight, would you like to go first?
Hi, yeah, there were a few things, because I found the letters helpful just to really understand the different perspectives. And there was also, in terms of the pictures that were submitted as part of those communications or letters into the record, were helpful and raised some additional issues that I have questions on. One was just really understanding the noise and the impact of the noise on the wetlands, the vibration, the lights at night, just in terms of the operating hours. Those are things that I'd like to understand what the impact is on the wetlands, to the extent that you have a lot of nocturnal animals which function in the bionutrient cycle, with the frogs, the salamanders, birds nesting, all of that goes to the physical attributes of keeping the ecosystem intact for sedimentation and things like that. The other thing was just in the pictures, it looked like there was a lot of overflow spill of materials, like beyond the walls. So when you looked at where the concrete was for the gravel, right above where the water outlet comes, that there was overflow of materials through the wall or over the wall. And there was materials over the wall of the other higher concrete wall that was used. Which then goes back to understanding, just, it would be helpful to understand a little bit of history, because this is an expansion off of the 2016, which kind of was the original permitting of when Penna moved into the Armory site. And I know that from that original hearing, it would be helpful to have in the record what the conditions were, just so that we understand, like, from that original hearing, my understanding was that Penna was not going to expand the business, that trucks and everything would be housed inside the Armory. This was in the public record. There was also that materials wouldn't be stored closer to 25 feet from the side or the rear property lines. Stockpiles wouldn't be higher, just to understand like I think that goes to zoning, and that there were noise ordinances that would be held. So I mean, like, all of this kind of comes together, and obviously, when you have trucks now being stored outside right next to the wetlands and water course, and you have people using water for wells, and you have the water quality, you have a lot of leaching and runoff potentially happening. So just to understand that impact and how this has evolved for the expansion. Because I think another commissioner, I think Paul at the last hearing was like, how much bigger can it get before we're really compromising the integrity of the wetlands and water course?
We will be prepared to address those questions. Absolutely.
Okay.
Brian, on your site plan, the revised site plan, I do see that you have amended the extent of the proposed yard expansion. But the silt fence, the limit of disturbance seems to be the same, which at the end of the day is kind of what I look for where are the closest impacts to the wetland and water course.
Alexis, could you share your screen, please?
Sure. Where's my screen? So I'm looking at so previously the yard ended approximately here, and then this, let me just turn off. This is the area within here is what was cited for the expansion of the yard on this side of the property. And this was what was proposed.
So that's actually,
yeah.
that's actually area where I'll make it more clear, but there's a hard line there that was disturbed, which will be restoring with those plantings. The permanent disturbance won't go outside of that wall though. But again, and I'll have this more buttoned up. I'll put an aerial photo over it. But this area, that silt fence, this line, this hard line is kind of hard to see. That is where, like you were saying, the current disturbances. So we will be restoring that and then putting that
right. And I was talking more about, so this is the line where there had been disturbance, this line that I'm following here. So everything within this area. And I was really asking about this area here, where I don't believe I think that this is all wooded.
That has not been disturbed, so we'll tighten that silt fence up. Yes, it's not a problem. I understand your point.
Yeah. So I would just say that any area that's undisturbed, you should leave it undisturbed.
That's our goal.
Even for plantings.
Okay. Cheryl?
Yeah, I believe I asked before for an existing survey of the trees in the area, and I don't see it as part of the materials. I'd like to understand what's coming down in your proposal as far as the forest canopy in the upland review area. And it would be good to understand the impacts of that on the wetland.
It's like Mr.
And
Fritz taking notes.
I would-
That's a good sign.
I'll just add that when you're doing that, please refer to the regulations, which I'm pulling up right now, and the application requirements in regards to obviously when we look at a woodland, we're looking at a multi-layered ecosystem of canopy and understory and shrubs. But in the regulations, it specifically calls out a diameter tree, I believe.
We do have that surveyed. I
Okay.
will have that.
All right, because at the last meeting you had mentioned that you thought that they had kind of captured trees that were like a 12-inch DBH or greater, and of course I can't find it at the moment, but I think it's closer to a 6-inch DBH. There it is. Yeah, so significant vegetation, including trees 6 inches DBH within the upland review area. So it's their reg spec. So anything within 6.
Okay. Any other commissioner questions or comments? So we're going to at some point move to keep this open.
Yeah, did you
And
want to allow public comment tonight, or you want to, I mean,
oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
or you can, I mean, either way. So you have people here that may want to comment, but it
Absolutely.
sounds like their comments that the applicant is going to continue to work on meeting their comments, but
Okay. Sorry about that. Yeah. Paul, you want to share something?
Well, I just want to ask, Brian, a question about the runoff on the water still. If you go back to the map where it's got shows the concrete, collection area, right, now that where the water's draining into, is that a dry well or is that connected to the city stormwater?
No, that's infiltration system. So that's a standalone system that basically has catch basins that run into an infiltration system. It's not connected to the city storm sewer. That's not allowed under the city regulations, only if there's an exemption given in certain circumstances. We wouldn't be qualified for that exemption.
Okay, so does that system filter out all of the oils and antifreeze and everything that's going to be flowing off this site?
So there is a infiltrator row here. We're assuming that basically we have work to do to meet the town city engineer's comments. He's going to want some type of pre-treatment. So we know that. We're waiting for that comment, and we're working on an updated plan right now to address his comments.
Okay.
Thanks. Catherine?
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to understand just contextually, at what point was the yard part of the 2016 plans? Because it seems like that's a marked difference from what was proposed in the hearing when they took over the Armory site, because in looking at the what I could see of the record, which is why I'm asking clarifying questions, was that the attorney had said that they wouldn't expand their operations, that everything would be put inside the Armory building, which is why they were excited about it, and that the rest of the property be untouched. So I just want to understand, like, what was the process in terms of when the yard started getting used as an active site for storing materials and storing trucks and things like that?
So the yard, and
Yard.
I'll, we're kind of floating into a special permit zoning issue here with that discussion, but this was the plan that was approved, submitted in 2016, but actually wasn't approved till 2018.
Actually, so it was approved in 2016
And then
with
they modified it.
above ground stormwater management for both this side of the yard and for the side of the yard closer to New Canaan Avenue. And in 2019, the plan was amended to allow infiltration trenches just on the other side of the stream. That's right on the left portion of what you've clipped from my staff report.
Right here.
And I didn't mean to cut you off, but on the website, Catherine, I will add the approved 2016 plan as well as the 2019 first amended plan, so that you guys have all the
And was there
information.
a memo of staff? Did it go in front of the Wetland Commission, Inland Wetland Commission, or no?
Yes, so in 2016, it went before the Inland Wetland Agency as well as the Planning and Zoning Commission for the installation of the yard. In order for the tenant to occupy the yard and make some of the improvements that they wish to make, including meeting city stormwater management requirements, a special permit from Planning and Zoning was triggered, as well as a inland wetland permit. And so that's in fact what you're looking at is they are seeking to modify that original 2016 inland wetland permit.
Okay, thanks. It would be helpful.
Yep.
Okay, let's go for some public comment at this point, if everyone's ready.
I apologize in advance if I mess up your name. First is Marwan Sadi. Oop, shoot, sorry. Here we go. Sorry about that.
Okay, we hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Okay, so first of all, I appreciate the time, and I realize that this is a wetlands meeting and not a zoning meeting. The concerns that I had and that we sent out in our letter, I'm just going to touch on a couple of them. One is that we're very concerned with what's going on with the water runoff. Not only did the expansion that was done change anything, because we have noticed a change in water, standing water on our property that we had never noticed before. So there's that concern there. And of course, any pollutants or anything that would get into the water supply and affect the wetlands, we're worried about. You put a lot more vehicles on a lot and it rains, and that water's got to go somewhere. And so we're concerned about that. Another one, and I realized that the sound barrier could be planning and zoning, could be, it's not directly wetlands, but it was brought up in the last meeting 2 weeks ago. So I feel that opened the door a little bit. Our concern is our house. We are one of the two houses that are closest to the actual Penna property, and the wall, the wall as it is currently designed seems to do nothing but apparently funnel sound more towards our house. And so we have concerns there. And also we noticed that the wall does nothing to assuage any noise in the direction of the expansion for the folks on the kind of the northeast side of the property, where they're going to be expanding the property closer to them, but with no sound mitigation. And then the last point, then I'll get out of here, is that, and forgive us if we feel this way, but we're talking about a company that already made changes without permission and has violated the rules. And so when we're told, oh, just trust that they'll take care of, a monitoring plan or anything else, forgive us if we have a little bit of a, trust issue. Thanks for your time.
And can I just, you had mentioned that if you could give us your address, that might
Oh,
be
sure.
helpful.
We're at 46 Carter.
46 Carter. And you said that you had provided a written comments?
Yeah, I emailed you on 4 days ago, whatever that date was.
All right, I just want to make sure that I have just make sure that I have that. And what would your email start with? I don't want you to give
It's my name, so it's Marwan Saidi.
If you could resend that. Did you receive an email back from me saying that acknowledging that I had received it?
I don't think so. I want to make sure I have the right emails.
Yep. I don't think I got your email.
Okay, it's ACHERICHETTI@norwalkct.gov, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I'll resend, but I mean, that's the address I sent it to, so.
Yeah, I've received others, but definitely not yours. Okay, if you resend it, and if tomorrow you still haven't received a acknowledgement from me, contact me. My phone number is also on the city webpage.
Okay, well, I just re-forwarded it, or I just forwarded it to you. So.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Next up.
And then next up is Elaine Shabir. You should still have permission to speak. That might have been my misclick. And then so Megan Miles.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Can.
Great. So again, to restate for this technically new record, my name is Megan Miles. I'm a land use attorney at Carmody, Torrance, Sandak, and Hennessy, and my address is 195 Church Street in New Haven. Again, my firm represents Karen and Peter Wilson, who own a budding property at 178 Pokanock Trail. I did submit correspondence into the record. I have a few brief comments to elaborate on here tonight at the hearing. So I have 3 overarching points to address. The first, I'm actually going to jump first to the sound issue, so to stress, my client's outdoor space, my understanding, is virtually unusable during the applicant's hours of operation due to noise and vibrations. And again, I recognize that is a zoning issue, but wetlands issue here as well, as I had previously discussed. Agreed in previous discussions with the applicant, my understanding is that they would install a 20-foot, 5-foot sound wall and a berm. And this was acceptable to my clients, and they felt it would help mitigate this noise and vibration issue. The plans that have ultimately been filed with the Wetlands Commission do not include the berm. Rather, what they contain is a concrete wall. And so from my client's perspective, what they have now is, instead of a sound wall and a berm, is they have a concrete wall with an unsightly chain link fence on top, and an intensification of the use of this area, which is now proposed to be used for material storage, I believe, closer to their property line. So it would go a long way with my clients in the neighborhood if there was acceptable sound mitigation plan that could be implemented, which includes a berm. And my understanding is this will have to go in the regulated area. So it's important that this is figured out now in connection with this wetlands application for the expansion. I hope that we can come with a solution that's mutually acceptable to my clients, the applicant, and this commission, because I'm concerned otherwise it's not addressed now. We go to zoning requires something, and we're back to the Wetlands Commission because whatever has to be installed has to go within the area of this commission's jurisdiction. So I'm optimistic that we can work this out, but I think figuring out a way to make this installation of the berm feasible would be very helpful for the issue. I do have to Commissioner Knight's earlier question about how she just wants to understand how loud is this? Like, what are the vibrations? What is the scope of it? I do have a very short 30-second video that has the sound. If you want, I probably had to be promoted to show it, but I'm happy to do so if the agency would like me to. But I do have that to share if you would like to hear it.
I always have, I mean, it's up to the commission. I can promote her to share. I always do worry about how this is, not that I want to ever go to court, but when you go to court, you have to like provide the presented documents, and it's just very difficult to.
I know. I can share the file with you after the fact, so you have it in your email for record purposes. I definitely understand that. But again, I do happen to have a video which shows it from my client's property.
Up to you, commissioners.
Anybody?
I mean, I think it would probably be more helpful, like for the record, to have like the decibel level would be, I mean, you have apps on the iPhone which you can get a measurement, that tell you what it is.
Okay.
Because, we can hear it, but I don't know how concrete that is.
Okay. Is this something that a third party expert could shine light on? I guess I think we would want to start with, someone telling us if and how vibrations and noise affect the wetland, and then start there, right?
So just for the record, we do have a acoustical engineer who has looked at this issue and who has worked with the neighbors. The reason why we designed it the way we did is from input from them. And I'll go into it, but I'll get a letter from them, basically, see if we can submit that in the record as expert testimony. Again, we're not trying to do something that's not going to solve the problem that the Pettas have been working on with the adjacent neighbors. The idea was to flip-flop the brick, have the wall, and then have the berm in front of the wall, which is the material that's going to be placed in that bin, so that we weren't impacting the wetlands. So the way it was before was they had a berm and then a wall and then the parking lot. The way we are kind of designing it now is there's the berm, which is the material pile, the wall, and then the restoration area. So I'll bring in the plans and we'll put it into as a feasible and prudent alternative, just to show everyone what was previously being proposed and how we got there. What I think I need to do is provide a permitting summary and how did we get here type of document that I can put into the record by the end of the week, so everyone's here. I know there's been a lot of changes going on. I don't want anything to seem that there's nefarious. There's a lot of competing activities based on the site and the fact that it backs up to a residential neighborhood. But this property was actually an industrial commercial area prior to the Pettas moving in. It was, I believe it was the U.S. National Guard or a DOT garage that was abandoned and then taken over when the Pettas came in, because they lost their yard in Lower Norwalk. as part of the bridge, the train bridge realignment. So again, I understand there's a lot of competing interests, which happens when you have existing zoning where there's commercial and industrial that backs up to residential. So we are trying to address that. I just need to put the pieces together a little bit more and try to get buy-in. But I will jump right on that and put together a permitting history and basically a document that shows how we got here and get a letter from the acoustical engineer I've been working with to say, yeah, this works.
Again, this is Megan Miles. I also encourage the applicant's team to reach out to me. I did speak to their counsel earlier today just to further work out a solution for the sound wall that's acceptable to my clients. I don't believe material storage is likely the best solution for a berm, especially when that's something that's transient, changes day by day, that sort of thing. But this hearing is being kept open, I understand it. So I'm optimistic we'll continue to work on this. But I do believe the issue is going to stay within this commission's jurisdiction temporarily because it's likely going to have to go within the regulated area. So that's what we're trying to figure out. I had two more points briefly, and then I will let you guys move on from me. The second point I wanted to make was, so this application that's pending is, so the site's already expanded in violation of old permits is my understanding. And so in many respects, it's to mitigate that old expansion, then also to kind of bless it going forward. Skipping ahead here. So first, though, I think a priority for my clients is that going forward, should expansion be approved, is ensuring that the work that they were supposed to complete back in 2016 under the original permits is continued to be required to be completed. So they're seeking approval for new work when they still need to comply with old permits. So it's making sure that that happens. And then again, as provided in the letter that I submitted, my clients really are against any further expansion, particularly because we believe the application materials as filed are currently incomplete, recognizing tonight that as they've been presenting that they're going to be preparing a lot more additional information for the record in advance of the next hearing. But again, there's no wetlands impact statement, there's no biological evaluation, there's no analysis of natural habitats. And then the stormwater drainage system, the materials provided really focus on the new system that's to be implemented, but we don't really get an understanding of, okay, what have the impacts been over these years by expanding and operating without the required systems that they were supposed to implement. And then for the portions of the site that don't have drainage systems and rather the runoff runs into the wetlands, with the expansion of the operations, is that still acceptable? And that's just not addressed in the application materials. And so I had put this in my letter, but my clients would really feel more comfortable if the commission did a site walk. I know that you did address this earlier in the hearing. I believe Alexis encouraged everyone to go visit the site themselves, but I think it would be really helpful to just get a full perspective of what my clients are seeing at this site and what is really going on at the site and what the impacts have been over the years in connection with expansion and future expansion proposed. And the last point I will make is to ensure that this application mitigates the lighting and air quality issues that can impact the wetlands, such as effective screening of dust that is necessary to protect materials from settling into the wetlands. It does seem that there is processing of materials on the site. You can hear it in my video. So it doesn't seem like it's just storage, but there is processing as well. And with that, I'll conclude. And as I concluded in my correspondence, that at this time, we believe that there are feasible and prudent alternatives to the proposal. And at this point, the application does not meet the requirements for approval under your regulations.
Thank you, Ms. Miles.
Thank you.
So I'm just going to jump in before we have the next public comment. Actually, no, let's keep going. Let's finish them out. And then we can
Okay,
talk.
so if anyone else would like to make any verbal comments, please use the raise your hand feature. Okay, so we have All right, you should have the ability to speak.
Yes, hi,
Just
welcome.
State your name for the record and
Yeah, Piotr
proceed.
Suchocki, 11 May Drive, Norwalk, Connecticut. So I'm directly behind Penna, and there is, of course, the noise issue, which I believe affects wildlife as well. The other part is we have a pond on the property and the water level is lower since Penna took over. How much that has to do with Penna action or, you know, a draft that goes around, I don't know. But where do Penna take their water from for their, you know, for their operation? I don't know that. I know that there is a trust issue because Penna have been in business since 1947, so they knew they violating law by cutting all those wetland trees. They were perfectly aware of it because they know what they're doing. They're great company construction. But why they did it? That's a good question. So they violate the wetland laws, and meanwhile, I couldn't even bury my propane tank because I'm too close to the wetlands on my own property. So I have a above ground propane tank just not to violate the laws. As Mrs. Miles stated, you know, they violate and they want to expand. So that's actually a conflict already there, yes. That's all. Thank you all for your time. It's really disturbing. We've been here 12 years and there is a big change. Okay.
Thank
Hello?
you. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you all for, you know, for your time. And I do believe Penna is a great company and they add a lot to our service, although I'm not sure if this is the right location for this type of you know, of operation business like that. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for your comments.
Next, we have Mr. Peter Wilson.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Thanks. Just, am I allowed to respond to some of the questions that came up, or I don't really know the limitations of what I'm allowed to say, and I don't want to walk that narrow line between zoning and wetlands either. I'm trying to be careful of that. There was a question how the operation got to the scale. I think at one point I know how it got to that scale, and I'd like to testify to it that he collapsed another operation in another part of Connecticut down into this operation. That's how it grew. And I agree, the original testimony and the original meetings we had on the property when we walked with Vinny and his team was all about backing trucks into the building and operating at night, etc. He does maintenance in that area where there are permeable surfaces, where he's servicing hydraulic systems, he's servicing oil and different activities out there that certainly are prone to some seepage and spillage. So that's how this quiet armory, which was used only periodically by the National Guard, and we were pretty friendly with them because the guys who would serve would come about once a month. They'd park there in that parking area, which had nothing but parking going on. They do calisthenics, they'd run around the neighborhood, they do some indoor work in the gym, and then they would be done for the month. So it was a pretty quiet area when we moved in 2006. Would the committee advise us that we get our own sound engineer? I'm not sure if you can advise us on that. We have done decibel readings ranging from 60 to 100 decibels from our deck. OSHA requires hearing protection at 85 decibels. So it gives you some sense of the sound. I know you didn't get to see the video, and it was not designed in any way to be an embellishment. It was designed to give you a real rendering of what nature and we have to deal with at all times of the day and night. And they began processing material when they collapsed that other operation in there. If you go back to the Goldstein property, they were doing nothing like this on that property that they lost over in the other area when they were relocated here. And I have great respect for what they do as well. And I said that in the initial hearing back in 2016 as well. But it's a question of suitability for the area from an environmental standpoint and from in our view from the neighborhood standpoint. I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson.
Any other members of the public wishing to speak? Please use the raise your hand feature in Zoom, or you can dial *9 if you're calling in. It looks like that's the end of public comment tonight. Staff would recommend that you do leave the public hearing open to allow the applicant to respond to some of the initial comments tonight and continue to work on meeting the stormwater quality and quantity standards.
Okay, heard. Cheryl?
I think we've heard some very interesting points about this application, and it feels like I'm just wondering if there was a question asked on an earlier application if it was too late to get an outside third party assessment of this project, but I am wondering if that is something that we could consider, and if anybody else feels that way.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I feel like I'm bringing a knife to a gunfight here. This is all much bigger stuff than I'm comfortable with without the support of an objective third-party professional. Anybody else feel the same way?
Yeah, I agree. There's been a lot of new information that's been brought to light through the commentary that's come up as a result of the hearing and leading into the hearing that we didn't have previously. So I think in light of some of the new points about the light, the noise, some of the pictures that we saw about materials kind of spilling in, and just even servicing of vehicles on surfaces and everything, I think we do need to look very carefully, more so with the third party, on the impact to the wetlands and really evaluate the expansion.
Paul?
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing how interwoven all this is. It's like there's not one big commission in Norwalk that can like take it all in. You've got planning and zoning, and then you've got us, and then you've got the engineers. One thing I did notice with the photographs that Miles had sent was the amount of concrete debris, not the concrete blocks that they had there, but the broken up concrete debris. And I had done some research a few weeks ago on how horrible that stuff is. And if it gets rained on, and what flows out of there it's very basic. And when I say basic, it's like pH basic, to where it harms the plants and the animals. There's arsenic in it, there's carcinogens in it, and it's just it's one of the worst possible things out there. Even when they're recycling it, they have problems with it because of everything that flows out of it if it gets wet, or what blows away from it. So I noticed on that one photograph, it's just a huge pile of it, and there's nothing preventing the runoff into the wetlands. So, as far as having a third party look at this and give us, provide us with some information, there's a lot of things that need to be looked at. From the animals and the plants perspective in the wetlands, to how the noise affects them, because it is the health of the wetlands we're looking at here. So.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, well, we try not to do a back and forth sort of approach here, but Mr. Carey, do you have any specific questions for the commissioners?
No, not at this time.
Okay, great. Okay, well then, Alexis.
So To
9 o'clock.
should have had some dinner. Did so to clarify, it sounds like what you're seeking is a professional wetland scientist to provide a third-party review of the wetland impacts, and impacts being the broad array of impacts that were noted. So the physical impacts, chemical, noise, light, and kind of a biological assessment of the area previously impacted, as well as the proposed.
Past, present, and future.
And so maybe could there be just a motion that you're requiring a third party review
So moved.
for that?
Can I have a second?
I'll
I'll
second it.
second.
Cheryl got it.
Yep.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Easy peas. Well, and I also, I mean, in case anybody from the public is still listening, thank you for keeping your comments on point. They were all, I think the commissioners have, I agree with them that we've learned more, and we're definitely interested in continuing to learn more. So thank you everyone for your input, and thank you, Mr. Carey, always for presenting us with good, useful information as well.
So could I
And
also get a
we'll,
motion out of you then to, or just a statement, so you are continuing the public hearing, leaving it open, and will reconvene on your February 11th to 2025 meeting at 7 p.m.
that can be a motion for me. Can I have a second? Catherine. All right, everybody's got theirs. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, let's keep it rolling. But for tonight, I think we'll move on.
Okay.
So back to the agenda. Discussion and or decision. Back to 292 Philo Street, S24-650. Oh, Amelia, you're still here.
So I can pull up the draft resolution I have prepared for you all and just walk through it very quickly.
Please do.
So somewhat standard conditions, the first one being the time frame in which the work must be completed, approximately a $5,000 bond to be posted, condition that the buffer be established and maintained, one for the sediment and erosion controls, and then just the follow-up photo documentation that the work had been completed. But if there's anything you would like me to add or edit or remove, please let me know.
I can lead this conversation, but I will abstain from voting on it. Do commissioners have any comments, suggested edits to the draft memorandum? Draft resolution? Sorry. And if nobody does, if someone would like to make a motion to
I'll make a motion to approve the memorandum, S24-650 for 292 Philo Street as written.
I'll second.
second. Great, thanks. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, 3, 4, none against. All right, well, sorry to make you stick around for 60 seconds of activity, Amelia. Thank you, Jackie, and Alexis, next steps.
Yeah, so we'll be, Amelia will be typing up the commission's approval, which will become the wetland permit, and we'll mail that to you guys, and we'll be talking to either you or the property owner soon.
Thank you all.
You bet. Thank you. Okay, thanks, Amelia. Moving on to S24-645, 36 Range Road. So we can discuss or we can decide, do we have to decide tonight?
You do not need to decide tonight. You have, my brain is shot, some amount of time from the close of the public hearing to render a decision, which I will look up because, but you do have time. Right, so you've closed the public hearing. Your decision needs to be based on the record. So no further investigation or looking at photographs, new photographs.
But we can discuss it.
But
least.
yes, and please do discuss. That will only help staff in trying to draft a resolution for whatever motion you're inclined.
Well, I think I know where Catherine stands.
Yeah, I don't see that there's enough of a vegetated buffer between the activities and the wetlands, you know, because there was 2 retaining walls put in, turf, gravel, you know, and so a lot of vegetation's been removed, and in terms of other applications, we've been pretty consistent in looking at ameliorating a lot of negative impacts that happen through relying on that importance of the vegetated buffer.
How do you feel about our lack of professional opinion to support how I think we're all feeling about this?
I don't know, Alexis, like if it's been, you know, in the record, do we have to get a professional opinion about, I mean, it's kind of a known fact in terms of how widely it's publicized and by what's in the regulations that there's benefit to the vegetated buffer. I mean, from deep to the EPA to any, you know, I mean, it's everywhere. And it's been in every decision that we've ever made and has ever appeared in the court system.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt that vegetated buffers play an important role in buffering, right? Wetlands from kind of your typical residential activity. So when assessing the impacts of the activity, you do have to somewhat so the way that the wetland regulations are constructed, it's on a case-by-case individual basis. It's very different from zoning. Zoning says, okay, all you people are gonna, you know, get a 5-foot side yard setback. And when you are assessing wetland impacts, you're looking at each individual wetland, so the existing function and value of the wetland watercourse system, and then the pre-existing, in this case, since it's corrective action, the pre-existing conditions of the upland review area, the current, and then what's proposed. So yes, you do have to, yes, buffers are important, but when making the decision for this application, you have to take into account the pre-existing conditions and all the other elements. So you just can't say that, you know, a X foot wide buffer is kind of required across the board, because your regulations are much more kind of it's applied for each lot. So yeah, so just keep you can't just, what I'm trying to say is that you can't just say that it needs more. you have to tie it to the, back to the activities that were done without a permit. And the amount that was lost then relative to what's being proposed now, if that makes sense.
It's all relative.
It is kind of all relative, and you just have to always make that link to, because more is always better, like no matter what. And so if you could just say we need more, you know, or you're denied, we'd have a lot of appeals. You can say more, you just need to take it a step further. So I just want to make sure I'm not like cutting you. I just want to make sure that you're, any decision that you make, and I don't really care what decision you make, my job is to make sure that you have enough supportive dialogue so that that decision, there's kind of a clear nexus between the facts and the decision that you get to. So I would review all those. I know that I had showed some aerial photos that showed the previous conditions, and when the application was first received, the applicant showed some photographs of what it looked like from the real estate listing. And just encourage you to look at all those. And then yeah.
Paul?
Yeah, just in response to what Catherine's concern was with the buffer, you know, when I was looking at the maps earlier, and again, when the maps were up during tonight's presentations, you know, I'm looking at how close the house is to that, you know, that stream, that brook, and the scale. You know, if we were to say, well, you need more buffer and it's got to be 20 feet of buffer, that would be up to his back door, and he wouldn't be able, you know, they wouldn't be able to use their backyard at all. And I think we sort of have to strike a balance. If you had a stream running 25 feet from your back door, you want some use of your property. I don't want to deny somebody that. His entire house lives, you know, sits in the review area. So, you know, the land architect or environmental designer, whoever she was, you know, she has a good argument. Just, you know, she's got the one tree there, she's got a lot of shrubs and a meadow, you know, and to give it some time. You know, the gravel I'm not too concerned about. They're going to put the metal edge in, and that's 10 feet from the stream itself. There's going to be rocks in the soil or stone in the soil. I don't think there'd be, I don't think it's going to flow down with any rainwater or anything, but I'm comfortable with what they've presented.
Okay. Cheryl?
Alexis, do you have easy access to some of the aerials or site photos that you were talking about?
Yeah, so we can
I mean, I can go through all my emails and stuff, but
so what would be, let me see if I made it. Hold on one second.
I mean, the issue that I have is just, it's a lot of change that's happened. And so you have a retaining wall, because it's not just about the border to the brook, it's the border to the wetlands. So we need to protect wetlands, and the wetland soil has an important function. So, you know, I get the balance and everything, but it's also about trying to say, okay, well, you've put everything in and you want 2 retaining walls. One retaining wall now sits on the boundary of the wetland, and that has an impact. You have gravel, that has an impact. You know, you have, it was stone, loose packed stone that was there with a, you know, not active. The wetland itself was canopied originally, you know, so it's a lot of change and impact and disturbance.
Well, but the canopy wasn't part of any of the work. Removal of the canopy wasn't part of any of the work that he did, though, was it?
Not really, so let me.
I mean, not to disagree with you, I'm trying to be, Alexis is right. I mean, we
Yeah.
don't want to give him but we don't want to overstep and, overreach. But we don't want to underreach either.
Okay, so zoom in a little bit. A little bigger. So this first one, this is these are PDFs that I showed previously. So this is in 2019, prior to any real work. So this is Range Road is on the left. This is the house. This is the pond, and the water course is this dark area here. And so one thing that I note is that the area between the pond and the house is relatively clear. So it doesn't look like, I don't want to go back to the whole program to show it, but it's not a kind of a multi-story layered woodland. Something kind of more like maybe to the south, or even somewhat on the other side, though even on the other side, there's evidence of kind of a manicuredness. So this is the tree that has the tree house in it. So that tree remains. And then the only other tree, there's a very small little tree here, which I'll have to, I don't think that's still there, but I'll double check. And then there was a tree that is up above an existing retaining wall. So this is a wall here that comes along here and then here. And so I'm going to let me switch to another angle just to show you. Let's see if this will open. Okay, and so this is also 2019, where the road is at the bottom of the photograph, and then this is the large tree that was removed, and it's right. It's pretty much you walked out the door and there was a tree there. So there's this rounded upper patio here, and then an upper flat area here, and then you can kind of see down to the pond. So there's an evergreen tree that's still here, and then this is the tree that has the tree house, and that's still here. And so then you can compare that to this next photo is 2022, when the work was had commenced. And the treehouse tree is still there. It's obscured by the evergreen. The tree that is right next to the house was removed, and the kind of rounded elements are now kind of much more kind of square. It's hard to, these kind of flatten everything. Clearly there's, this is that lower retaining wall is being constructed, and this is, a portion of the wetland that was disturbed. But when you look at, back to what they were saying, and what I think Mr. Anderson had testified, is he honestly believed that all these elements were already there. He was re-sculpting them, redoing them, obviously with much more wetland impact than he understood. But so it is important, I think, to look at the conditions prior to any work. And then I'll just go back to this one. So this is 2019. This is 2020. And so in 2020, there's seems to be like some work. The tree that was here was removed, but none of the grading has occurred. So again, there's the pond, some rocks. This large rock hasn't moved. This is the treehouse tree. This is the evergreen tree, and these are those upper retaining walls. And then again, it doesn't really come out in the aerial photos, but this is kind of a slope. And then this is approximately where that lower retaining wall is eventually built. Keep going down. This next one is 2021. And so again, this area is pretty much the same. Again, the rounded thing, the somewhat rounded thing, the treehouse tree now with the treehouse. And then you can see the start of the lower retaining wall. Again, the pond and
Boulders there.
boulders there. And then this is 2022. Scroll over a little bit. Same thing, going from right to left, pond, put up silt fence, tree with the tree house, the lower retaining wall being constructed, and then the upper retaining wall has been redone and kind of squared off by 2022. I can keep going there.
Thank you.
I mean-
that cleared it up for me. So that was helpful.
Yeah, so that was my
revisit.
point about like, you know, it's a lot of impact that's happened for me.
Well, I mean, if we decide to, let's see, what would if we reject the application, then what happens?
Then you would restart from square one, probably. So it would be typically it gets returned to an administrative process. So they'd get another order and be directed to reapply. For the buffer, share the. So when you're making a decision, you can, if you're making a decision to deny, that's another thing. But if you're making a decision to approve, you can approve with conditions, which you typically do, with limitations and with modifications. And so just going back to where the buffer would be, if this is the wetland line here, this is the area of bamboo. I forgot to point out the bamboo in the aerial photos. So they're proposing a buffer restoration here. And I don't know, would having this, they have a planted area here where I believe this Throckmorton, describes the plants they're in. It could, I mean, is that if that were to be maintained in a way that was not manicured and more kind of natural, would that be enough of a buffer? I'm just trying to kind of going back to that, like that more and more in relation to what was there previously.
I think it'd be hard to call that a planting inside of a planter. Would be difficult to argue that that's a buffer. The wall, it's got a wall
Right.
to either side.
Right.
So it's not like it's open and, like Catherine's concerned about, feeding the nutrients and replenishing the soil and everything else. It's not adding anything. I don't think changing what's planted in there would make any difference.
After
What-
seeing some of the images of what was existing, I'm pretty comfortable with what they've proposed. I think Catherine made a good point. Catherine, I'm sorry, the landscape architect, in that the water going down is slowed, so it is filtered through there, whereas before it was a slope, and it did look like it was a maintained manicured slope where that planting bed is now that we're discussing. So it seems like the speed of the water running down is slowed and there's probably more infiltration. The pictures really helped remind me of what the site looked like before. So thank you, Alexis.
What if okay, so I guess we need to come up with, so we can, we've got what we've got submitted by the applicant. We can approve, we can ask Alexis to draft a resolution with edits or, changes to what's proposed and vote on that. So for example, if someone wanted to pull back, we could verbally say, okay, we don't think the 4-inch metal edging between the gravel and the wetland should be right on the wetland line. We think it should be 5 feet back from it. We could do that, right, Alexis? Okay.
Right. And so just like any conditions, limitations and modifications are fine as long as they relate back to how it impacts or doesn't impact a wetland. So
Okay.
Yep.
Fine. Okay.
I'm concerned about mulching on top of the planter bed because the mulch runs off. If it's slanted or you have an overflow, and so the mulching then goes into the wetlands. And it's a problem. I mean,
Yeah.
Right. And that's why I was asking if, it's not an ideal buffer, but would modifications to that planting bed, would that make a difference is what I was trying to personalize.
Sure. If we make that into more of an actual buffer and not a pretty planting spot. Sure. I'm game
that
for
would
that.
make a difference.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would pulling back the line between the gravel walkway and the wetland make a
Look at
difference to
you
anybody?
have to look at the contour lines there, Stephen. That's very steep
Yeah.
to start with. And that was one of the problems he had with the backyard. It was the steepness, the grade. And like Cheryl said, at least the water's not flowing down like a river now.
We could do a short wall there and have it be a 2-foot tall drop off if we wanted to. I mean, right? If
I don't know. It seems like there's a lot of walls there already.
Well, yeah, but what are the purpose of the walls? Honestly, part of it to me is to avoid the temptation of being able to wheel a lawnmower down there, honestly. I mean, no one likes to lift a lawnmower.
I would be a little concerned about the we'd be disturbing the soil even more to
Okay.
install a wall versus a steel edging.
Okay. All right. Just throwing ideas out there.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So,
I mean,
right.
you could do, you've done wetland demarcation. So you could do if your concern was that there was going to be a lawnmower down there on top of the gravel, you could have two man boulders.
There you go. Yeah. So the kids can still walk through there if they want, or people can walk down there and enjoy the wetland if they like, but we're creating a very clear line between what is manicured and what's not. So yeah, I would propose that.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
We
I
got-
prefer to have the gravel pulled back from not being on the wetland line because it's also temperature, you know, I mean, there's other things besides just water flow and insect life and things like that that are important for nutrient cycles.
So would you say to line it up instead of bumping out a foot like it does, would it be good enough to line it up with the face of the lower portion of the retaining wall planting bed?
Yeah, or just-
Keep in line with the other wall there.
There you go. Okay. All right, so we're straightening
So
that
that's-
line out. We're putting down a couple man-sized boulders. We are asking the landscaped area between the two retaining walls to be restored, or not restored, but replanted with wetland appropriate plants that don't require
Right.
mulch around them. Keep going. Sorry, jump in.
No, just like native wetland plants, yeah.
Sure. Approved.
Yeah, I think native plants, because wetland plants, it's above the wetland. It may not be that wet in that little section, so maybe it should maybe aim for just native.
Love it.
Um,
All right,
Native
Alexis,
non-
Otherwise they'd
native
have to
non-invasive.
irrigate it, and nobody wants to do that.
Okay.
So,
Awesome. Awesome. Alexis, you got enough to work with?
I do. And then any, you know, your, if you want to individually email me with any concerns or other suggestions, I can email me and I can try to turn that into resolution material.
Beautiful. Thank you. Okay, thanks, everybody. I think we'll move on with the agenda if that's okay.
Yep.
All right. So moving on to S24-648. Penna site.
So those, neither of those you can discuss because you still have a public hearing that
Love
has
it.
been continued. So you're done with both those.
Okay. So that moves us on to the home stretch.
Just one procedural question.
Mhm.
With the hearing still open, can we go site visit?
Yes, and so for that site, obviously it is a yeah, you can call me if you'd like a staff escort. But yes, I would encourage you to for any that hasn't closed a public hearing to go look. But yes, if you'd like a staff escort, we can do that to assist with your general safety. Absolutely.
Okay. Gravy. Okay, so then moving on to acceptance of minutes. I wasn't at the January 14th meeting.
I'll move to approve them. I read them.
Awesome. Second,
I'll second it. I read them.
any discussion? All in favor?
I
3-4, 1 abstention. Okay, conservation initiatives. Let's pass on this tonight, I think.
Yeah, we did get a copy of the executive office of the president's Office of Management and Budget regarding some grant funded activities that we were hoping to do. And there has been a pause of all federal assistance programs, including
I believe
municipal
there may be a temporary
funding.
injunction.
So other than that, that was disappointing to
When
receive
were
that
you
money.
supposed to be receiving the money?
It was a mix of grants, of 3 different grants that we were preparing to publish RFPs by the end of the month.
Wow. Wow.
And NPR News at 6 said there was an injunction.
Hmm.
So you might be able to
Well, it's
do
good,
something,
right?
hopefully.
Anyway, let's move on.
We'll hang in there. We'll hang in there. Okay, reports from the commission chair. I don't have any reports. Anybody have anything they want to chime in on? Hard no from Cheryl. Okay. Senior environmental officer. Not as quite hard no, but still definitely a no. Okay, then I will move to adjourn. Can I have a second?
Second it.
All in favor? Aye.
Bye.
4
right.
for, none against.
Thanks, everyone. See you.
Good night, all.
Yep.
Have a
Thank you,
good
everyone.
night.
Bye. Thanks.